want to take your DIY skills up a rung, the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show is here to give you a boost on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
Well, Betsy, we're back, and we are going to talk about the one tool that every single person, man, woman, child, should have. Right?
Well, yes, and I'm guessing a lot of homes already have this tool.
Yeah, which makes this a little bit of a letdown. Because it'd be really fun to have, like, the one thing that everybody needs, and we would just create some run on the stores.
Well, I venture that this one tool has traveled further than any other tool.
It's probably traveled further than most.
Yeah.
It's incredibly popular.
Uh-huh.
You're going to know what it is very soon into this.
Yes.
But we've got some stories that there are a few stories
just to prove how far it's traveled.
Right. There are a few stories in the world of tools that will illustrate the value of a particular item, quite like these.
Right.
Now, let's just start with December 11, 1972.
Yes.
All right. A team of 3 men, Gene, Jack, and Ron,
Yes.
arrive in a beautiful valley. Okay, can you picture the setting?
Yes.
They arrive,
it has mountains.
Right, it's ringed with mountains. They're on the edge of the Sea of Serenity, which sounds amazing.
Sounds very calming.
Right, it's where I want to be. Now, Gene and Ron, they had Navy backgrounds.
Yeah.
And Jack was a scientist.
Right, because you always need a scientist in your group.
You always got to have that. Sounds like a movie. They were here on a mission to explore this region, which to this day is still largely unexplored.
Yes.
So they're out there in the unknown, the wilds, I guess you would say. The whole thing started well. You know, everything was going along fairly well. But then a couple hours after their arrival. So really, it only went swimmingly for a short amount of time. But a few hours after their arrival, while they were loading equipment into their little vehicle that was going to drive them all over the place, Gene bumps the rear fender, their fender extension, with a hammer that was in one of the pockets on his pants, on his uniform.
Right.
And it knocks that fender extension clean off. So there it goes. Now, ordinarily, on an off-road vehicle, a missing fender isn't a big deal.
No, usually you can just keep going on and no worries about it. But in this instance, this potentially meant a failed mission. So it's something that's critical to get fixed because this wasn't just any off-road vehicle. This was an off-world vehicle.
Yes.
A lunar rover. And Gene and Jack and Ron were Gene Cernan, Jack Schmidt, and Ron Evans.
They were astronauts. And they were on the moon.
They were.
And the Sea of Serenity doesn't have any water, which was kind of a letdown. They brought their bath towels for no reason.
Right.
Anyway, the missing fender extension caused huge complications.
Yeah.
And like we said earlier, it threatened to completely derail the mission. With the fender extension missing, they talked about, you can go and read all of the transcripts of them sending videos back. They talk about the rooster tail of dirt that went up behind them of the lunar dust.
Those boats that go to Mackinac Island, they have the giant plume of water behind them. That's what was happening with this rover. And the problem is moon dust is not like the dust we have here and things like that. It's more gritty. It has sharper
Wind
edges.
doesn't wear it down. There's no water to wear it down. It's sharp. It's coarse. It's heavy. It's thick.
Well, and hello, gravity, or lack thereof.
Right, so it just went everywhere. They said they had to stop every few minutes just to dust off everything. Their visors would get covered with it, and it was so gritty and coarse that it actually scratched the visors when they're trying to clean it. It
That's
was
a bad
threatening to
thing.
damage and destroy everything. So Gene gets out, and he decides he's going to fix it. So he pulls out this tool. Duct tape.
Yes.
There's actual video of him on the moon trying to duct tape the fender back on the lunar rover. The downside or the problem was that there was so much dust in the air, it would collect on the duct tape.
Right.
He would make it work, and it would work for about 4 hours or so, and then it'd come off again.
Right.
So their first day out there was dramatically hampered by all of this dust.
Right.
So they returned to their lunar module.
Yes.
To rest for the evening, and they're going to start again the next day if there's a solution. And that's when NASA, back home, Houston,
Houston, we have a problem. Well, and this is what always happens. Whenever there's a problem, when our astronauts are in space, back on Earth, they have to come up with a solution with just whatever might be up there with these guys already.
Right, because there isn't a RepcoLite or Port City Paints up there.
There is not.
Because paint would help.
That's too bad.
But, yeah, maybe next year.
Well, at least the duct tape we saw would help. So what NASA decides to do is they get out some laminated maps that the guys already have up there, and they duct tape them all together, and then they kind of fashion a fender out of these maps and duct tape, and they clamp all of that because the duct tape won't stick to the rover itself. It'll stick to the maps, not the rover. They clamp it on, and they can continue with the mission.
Right. So they radio all of those instructions to the guys in the lunar module. They do it inside where it's dustless, or at least a relatively dust-free environment. And get it set, and then like Betsy said, they clamp it on the vehicle in place of that fender extension, and it worked for the rest of the mission.
Right, so mission complete.
Thank you, duct tape.
Well, and that is not the only time that duct tape has been in space.
It's a lesser-known one than the one you're going to talk about.
Well, yes, because let's face it, a lot of people, I think it was back in the 90s, saw the movie
Ron
Apollo
Howard,
13.
Opie from Andy Griffith made Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon. Don't remember the other gentleman. Bill Paxton?
Yeah.
I'm going out on a limb there.
We'll just
but we know the
with
story
it.
of Apollo 13, where there was an explosion of an oxygen tank, and the astronauts were forced to move to the lunar module to save power that they needed for re-entry, back to Earth.
Right.
The problem was the lunar module was meant only for 2 people and for 36 hours, not 3 people and 96 hours. So carbon dioxide built up rapidly and became life-threatening.
Right. So NASA, while, again, the guys slept, had to come up with something with all of the things the astronauts had on board that was going to scrub out the air and get rid of that CO2.
Now, they had square canisters, or square scrubbers from the command module.
Right.
But the problem was, in the lunar module...
you have circular scrubbers.
Right. And so they had to find a way to make the two fit together. Make the square peg fit in the round hole. And amongst other things, duct tape played a huge role in the solution.
Yeah, so duct tape to the rescue. Once again, our astronauts are able to get back to Earth, and everyone's safe and sound, and that's what we like.
And we were very interested to learn that duct tape is actually standard equipment on space missions since the days of Gemini.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Of all the things, how they go over the list of things they're bringing with a fine-tooth comb. Think about a hiker. A hiker doesn't just a good hiker, doesn't just randomly throw things in the backpack.
Right.
Everything that goes in is critical because weight, all of that stuff matters, so much space. Everything needs to be conserved.
Right. Well, you can only send so much stuff
into space. And yet duct tape makes the list from the days of Gemini all the way to now, does it? Is it still on the list?
It absolutely is, and it became very critical this past August, the end of August 2018. Something that was flying around in space, whether it be a rock or space junk, hit the International Space Station in the Russia segment, and it blew a 2-millimeter hole in the side.
A 2-millimeter hole?
Yes. Now,
so a really tiny hole.
Well, that doesn't sound like
a big deal.
Except when you're in space.
Space, that's right.
And you only have 18 days to live if you don't find the hole.
So then they had to search the whole thing for the hole?
They did. Mission Control called up and said, hey, we noticed your pressure's dropping. You better go figure out. And they isolated it to this unit, and they did end up finding this particular hole in the side of the space station.
So how does duct tape play into this?
Well, because first of all, some guy named Alex had his finger sticking in the hole, and the comment...
He's probably the guy who found it.
Well,
I know the solution, guys. I'm going to just do this.
That's entirely possible. The funny
I would have
thing
been complaining about how sore my finger was getting.
Well, the comment that was heard was, right now Alex has got his finger in that hole, and I don't think that's the best remedy for it.
So what did they do? They duct tape Alex to the hole? Duct tape his finger there?
Not exactly. Epoxy and duct tape is how they fix that hole.
Okay, well, that's maybe... that's how NASA would do it.
Right.
My
that's how astronauts would do
worked.
it.
I would have duct taped my hand there.
That does not surprise me.
Oh, but then I would have to go to the bathroom at some point. And there I am, saving the space station by being duct taped to the hole.
Right.
I don't think I want to do that. We'll just use the epoxy that the astronauts use.
Yeah, it's a much better plan,
tape.
I think.
Yeah. So duct tape, it's used everywhere. In space.
In space.
You can use it for anything. It is not necessarily a permanent fix for anything.
Unless you happen to be my dad.
Right. But even then, it's normally not the permanent solution.
Right.
But it is a temporary fix for everything.
Yes.
Everything. So you've got to have a roll on hand. If it's good enough for astronauts, it's good enough for all of us.
Absolutely.
And that's all the time we've got. If you want to hear this episode or any of our past episodes, just head to RepcoLite.com.
And make sure you're checking us out on Facebook. You can keep up with where we are, like home shows and things like that, see what we're doing, and make sure when we go to those things, you stop out and see us.
Right. And whatever you do today, make sure you make paint a part of it. RepcoLite and Port City Paints are open until 3. I'm Dan Hansen.
And I'm Betsy Thompson. Remember, if you're about to lose your DIY sanity, we can help you fix that crazy.
And while we cannot get you to the moon,
no,
we can sell you the tools that they would take when they go to the moon.
Yes.
And better yet, we can play some audio from Gene Cernan, the last man to stand on the moon.
Yep.
He's the Gene that we talked about in the beginning of this segment, and we've got an audio clip of him actually on the moon during that mission, and we're going to ride out with that. It's a lot of fun. Thanks for listening.
I was strolling on the moon one day in a merry, merry month of December. Now, May, when much to my surprise, a pair of bunny eyes. Oh, is this a neat way to travel? Isn't it great? Dum-da-dum-dum-dum. Dum-da-dum-dum-dum.